It is the 50th year of hip hop. It marks the 50th anniversary of hip hop music, the birth of hip hop, which is an incredible thing. So cool to still see it thriving today and growing and changing in different ways. Really, really cool thing. And yeah, why not celebrate the 50th year by making my own 50 favorite rappers list? It just seems a natural thing to do. I've been seeing all kinds of different celebrations throughout the year for the 50th year of hip hop. Many people have been doing lists like this, the 50 best rappers of all time list, the most influential. I've been seeing producer lists as well, hip hop producer lists too. I've been seeing all kinds of things. So I thought, why not jump on board and get involved myself and make this too, and mark a way to celebrate the 50th year. That being said, I've been a little reluctant and a little apprehensive to do this list because I know how hip hop fans can be and how tiring conversations and discourse can be around particular lists like this. It's like you have to have certain names on your list or you're wrong. You have to have this person here, or if this person is above this person, your entire opinion is discarded and you're, exiled from hip hop whatever for the rest of whatever. It's really toxic, it's really vicious, it's really stupid. I find a lot of it quite tiring, but at the end of the day, there's no reason why I can't put myself in this conversation as well. I'm a big hip hop fan. I respect the genre so closely and have done greatly for years. And I'm a music lover, and I think I'm confident enough to speak my opinions and for people to at least appreciate them. So there's no reason to feel like you can't insert yourself into a conversation, And yeah, as a lover of the genre, as a respecter of the genre, as an absolute worshipper of the genre really for a long time now, I feel I should be able to do this, and I'll get ridiculed, I'm sure, but let's just take it as it comes. So a few things to get through before we get to the list, and you're probably going to get bored and skip this bit, but I honestly would implore you to watch this entire bit for however long it goes on, because I do think you need some context and background as to what this list is going to be. First and foremost, it's obviously my personal list. It's my own opinion. That should go without saying. I'm one person. I don't speak for everybody. And my list will be totally different to yours, okay? Your list is as valuable as mine. If you respect and appreciate something and pay attention to it closely enough, I think you have a good, strong enough opinion to make your own list like this and it be as valid as anyone else's, really. But yeah, that's the first thing. Secondly, I do want to say I'm not going to order it. I'm just going to put them in alphabetical order. So if you see an order and you see the numbers next to their name, don't get too confused or don't get too hung up on about it. Just pay attention to how it's listed because it is literally alphabetical. So there's no order here. I couldn't really do it. I found it really hard. I don't even know if I could pick my number one rapper of all time, to be honest with you. There's so many different variables and so many different metrics and so many different ways to do it that I just thought there's no point in getting way over the top with that kind of thing. Just put it in alphabetical order and leave it at that. I think that's the easiest way to do this. Another thing I'm going to have to bring up as well is that when we talk about lists like this, particularly when it comes to hip hop, everyone seems to encapsulate and put everything together in one box and have to take so many different things into account when ranking them. You never see this with any other list. But it's always the same with rappers lists, and I don't really know why. You have to talk about influence. You have to talk about flows and cadence and discography, and you have to talk about how they impacted the culture. Like, there's about 50 different things to take into account every time when you see lists like this. And I want to take the Tyler, the Creator approach, to be honest with you, when it comes to this. When he was in that interview a few months back and it went viral and a few people seemed to be quite annoyed with him for some reason, and basically take the approach of just talking about my own opinion and how the music makes me feel, because I'm only one person. I'm not going to tell you the overarching impact that one person's had on an entire landscape of music. I don't want to take any of that into account. That should be its separate list. If I'm doing an influential rappers list, it would look totally different to the list I'm about to show you today. But that's not what we're doing. We're talking about this list and how it personally is important to me. These rappers are important to me for the reasons that I'm going to give you, not because that they influenced every rapper from New York for the next 30 years. I'm not doing that, okay? That's a totally separate list. So you're going to look at this list and you're going to think there's names omitted, there's people that should be here, yada, yada, yada. Well, It's just my own opinion, okay? This is just what I feel, how I feel about these rappers. With all that being said then, I'm going to talk you through some names that aren't going to be on this list that you probably would expect to see, or maybe think that they should be here. But for me personally, they've just never really done it for me like that in terms of their music. The first one having to be Eminem. He's not going to make my list here. I'm just not a big fan of him. Even his earlier work, which I respect and appreciate for what it's done for hip-hop in general, and his general talent, which he has bags of. And the amazing tracks that he has put out over the years, by the way. This is not me saying that everything he's put out is terrible. He's got some amazing songs over the years, of course, but just generally as a rapper, I think he's put out more bad than he has good at this point. So why would I put him on a favourite rappers list? This isn't an influential rappers list, or else he'd be on it, but it's my personal favourites, and he just isn't that guy for me at all. Like, he hasn't been for years, and he gets way too many excuses made for him. I think if he keeps going on the trajectory he is, we could see a very different view of him as an artist in 10 years time, because there's just been so much bad at this point that I can't make excuses for him like everyone else seems to. He's not on my list. Tupac, I think, is a really talented rapper as well, but I've listened to his work and I've tried it, a lot throughout my life. I like it. I think Changes is an amazing song, and he's got other great tracks too, but just generally, like, overall, I don't go back to his work that much, so I can't really put him on this list. I also want to mention Lauryn Hill. I think she gets a really, 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 really free pass for a lot of these lists, to be honest with you. I mean, one solo album, and that was it, and she makes so many top 10s. That to me is mad. I really feel like she gets a free pass a lot of the time. And another thing with her is that, the solo album that she did give is like more than half neo soul. She doesn't rap as much as people seem to think she does on that album. By the way, I think Miseducation of Lauryn Hill is a really good album, by the way. It really is good. I like it a lot, and Doo Wop is one of my favourite rap songs of all time, but the entire album isn't rap, so I don't really know why she gets put on these lists so much. Obviously, the Fugees' work was really good too, but yeah, I don't think it's enough material to put her on a list like this. So yeah, there are a few that you're probably expecting to see, but I wanted to give you some background as to why they're not there. There's loads of others as well that I want to mention that just can't quite make it at the moment because they just maybe don't have enough music out, so it's not necessarily that I don't like them. But an artist like Red Veil, who I think one day might make a list like this for me personally, because I think he's on a really, really good trajectory at the moment where he's looking like he could be a future star in the making for hip-hop. He's already put out great music anyway. Khalil Blue as well, I think could make a list like this for me in the future. Not really one anyone mentions or discusses. He's pretty small and niche at the moment, but for me, his music so far has been fantastic. Quell Chris I wanted to mention too. Lil B, Chief Keef, these are rappers that I do really like and have put out really great work that they just didn't quite make this top 50 for me. McKinley Dixon as well. I really feel like he could be on a list like this at some point because his album from this year was fantastic, but again, it's not enough music to be on a 50 favourite rappers list. So for me personally, these names can't quite make it on, and then the ones I mentioned before aren't going to be on just because I'm not really that big of a fan of them. There'll be loads of others as well that you might have thought, oh, why is they not here? I'm not the biggest fan of Rakim, if I'm being honest with you. I totally appreciate what he did for music and the landscape of hip-hop, but I just never really got into Eric B and Rakim's music, to be honest. So yeah, I don't know, man. This list is probably not going to be the same usual list you might expect to see, but let's hope you enjoy it regardless, because these are my personal favourites. I'm going to reveal 10 at a time, so you can see 1 to 10 on the screen at the moment. I've just got the list here, so it reminds me of what I've got here, and I'm just going to kind of talk you through some of them. Some of them just kind of go without saying. Andre 3000, do I really need to talk about why he's on this list? Not really. I think it is quite funny how a lot of people kind of discredit him a little bit though and be like, oh, he never put out any solo work, so he can't be that high on the list. But then Big Boy did put out solo work, and yet everybody on every list ever ranks Andre above Big Boy. So it's like, how important was solo work really if we saw Big Boy do solo work and yet you still think Andre is better? It really goes to show how good of a rapper he is that he didn't ever need to do a solo rap album. He did obviously the ambient music from earlier this year, but yeah, it didn't really need to happen. And Big Boy's solo work actually isn't very good, to be honest with you, and yet he does make the list. So again, goes to show how good these two were as a duo. What they did for Outkast, it was incredible. They didn't need to do solo work to prove themselves at all, to be honest with you. Black Thought could honestly be the number one on this list. I could argue that. I think he's incredible. I think his longevity is insane as well. The music he's putting out nowadays is still worthy of putting on like your best of the year list every single time. That Danger Mouse album from last year is only getting better every time I listen to it, to be honest with you. Like, incredible. This guy should not be as good as he is at the age he is right now. Yeah, insane. Blue, who obviously for a while he was only really known for his work with Exile on Below the Heavens, but then returning with the Miles album and then doing that solo album, The Colour Blue. I was just sat there like, actually, you know what? He's put out quite a decent amount of music at this point, and it's all really good. So he has to be on this list. But even if it was just Below the Heavens, I think a lot of people would have still put him on their list anyway, because that album is just that good. Busta Rhymes is just an insane talent that we, see on so many features, kills it every time. And by the way, people don't really talk about his solo stuff much, but The Coming from the 90s, that's an amazing rap album from the 90s. Booty Brown I wanted to mention, just because of how important his stuff is with the coup. Not really a talked about rapper. This is why I wanted to do this list, because it is a bit different, and I do have rappers that don't pop up on many others here. And I did want to mention Booty Brown because I do feel like, actually, you know what, his work is really strong for political rap as well. This guy, not really like anyone else. Conway, yeah, sure, I think he's definitely the best Griselda member. Daveed Diggs has a vision that nobody else has in the rap game at all. Just the work he does with clipping is insane. The vision, the narratives, the concepts are just remarkable. And Del the Funky Homo Sapien had to be on my list too. Not just for his work on the Gorillaz track, Clint Eastwood, which is an amazing song. But again, his solo stuff gets really overlooked, just like Busta Rhymes too. He ain't just a feature merchant. These guys have great solo work too. Okay, next 10 now. Let's talk you through these. Dizzy Rascal, of course, is more of a grime name, I guess you could say, but obviously still raps, and I think he's worthy of being put on a list like this. Of course, his pop crossover that he cultivated in the 2000s was pretty remarkable, and so much of that has aged really well. But then you go to something like Boy in the Corner, which is more serious and more in the grime sort of sphere, I guess you could say, and that is aged incredibly well too, so I couldn't not include him on here. LP, of course, his underground stuff from years back, and then his stuff with Run the Jewels is, all really unique, and his versatility is pretty remarkable as well. Elzai isn't a name you tend to see on lists like this, but his word game and his word play is just ridiculous. Like, the ideas he comes up with on some of his albums, I just had to put him here, because every time I do listen to him, I'm just like, wow, this guy is really, really one of a kind. So definitely check him out if you never have. Freddie Gibbs, another feature merchant, I guess you could say, but of course his solo stuff is just remarkable as well, and then the stuff with Madlib is just on another level. Yeah, couldn't not include him here. Future, not considered lyrical, and I think a lot of people might scoff at the idea of having trap artists on a list like this, because again, they're not lyrical, they don't have the bars, they don't, they're different to your typical lyrical, spiritual, miracle, blah, 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 blah. I even just messed up saying that there. But yeah, you get what I mean. But I can't deny his discography at this point. Like, the amount of great mixtapes and albums he's got, like, the ratio is insane. He might have one of the best ratios of all time. Like, the amount of great stuff he's put out, like Monster, DS2, Future Self-Titled, which to this day is my favourite one. You could even bring up albums like The Wizard, which are pretty underrated too. Jesus Christ, there's so many good ones. Like, it is really good. And again, there will be trap on this list, because I do think it's worth bringing them up. And, there's no reason why they can't be valued in the same way. They're not lyrical, but it's about what they bring to the game and bring to the table, and Future is really one of a kind, honestly. Ghostface Killer, there's some of these I don't really need to talk through and explain. I don't need to explain Guru, really, do I? Don't really need to explain Ice Cube, but I do want to kind of say how funny it is whenever you listen to NWA, and he's easily like the best part of it. Like whenever his verses come on, he's just so far and away above the others. Like it's just ridiculous how much better he is, to be honest with you. I do think that 80s era of rap is dated a little bit, though. I don't really go back to NWA much, if I'm being honest with you. But even his solo stuff is remarkable as well. Groggs, I want to go back to here and talk about what a rapper he is. You know, passed away so tragically a few years ago. God, man, just to think what Injury Reserve could have been and where they might have gone with him still around. He was so good and so personal and so thoughtful and so emotive with his verses as well. Seriously, listen to any Injury Reserve song, and whenever he comes in, the passion and the delivery and the heartfelt pain that he comes through with on tracks like Keep On Slipping. There's so many other tracks as well. It is really, really beautiful how he words himself. Yeah, I absolutely love Groggs. Another underrated one from a list like this, but he can't not make it for me. This next list of 10, just through the pure look of the alphabet drawer, is just remarkable, man. Starting off with Jay-Z. Jesus Christ, what can we say about Jay-Z? Maybe teetering a little bit on that Eminem side, though, of dropping so much weak music that it's starting to get a bit like, ooh, but he did then come back and bounce back with 444, which was a really good album. So, you know, he did redeem himself there. Kanye West, look, man, again, really maybe ruining his legacy a little bit with the things he's saying and how he's presenting himself. But that run of albums, man, is just so good. Like, even up to Yeezus, I think it's ridiculously strong. I think Pablo was good too. Everything after that's been a bit shaky for me, to be honest with you. But he can't not be included, man. Kanye's just, yeah. Kendrick Lamar maybe has the best rap album of anybody on this entire list with To Pimp a Butterfly. I think it's definitely an argument you could make. Incredible stuff. Killer Mike, again, solo, really good. Run the Jewels, incredible as well. Wasn't the biggest fan of Michael, I will say that. I've talked about that on this channel before. Was a bit disappointed with that album, to be honest with you. But even without that, I can't really exclude him from a list like this. I think he's, you know, put out such good music over the years that he kind of has to be included. Lil Wayne, the mixtape run, the Carter run, you know, the Carter series, yeah. Lil Wayne, yeah, come on. Little Sims, I think she's slowly starting to creep up on lists like this. I've seen her a few times recently pop up, and I'm seeing the vision, man. I'm seeing the vision. I think Little Sims already is up there for me. I mean, she's different to some of the rappers I mentioned at the start of the video, where their discographies are just a little too short to include. But Little Sims has been at it for a while now, and even some of those first couple of albums, which she wasn't very well known or popular, are really good. And then, of course, we got to 2019 with Grey Area. Then we got Simbi, which is just, wow, it's a fantastic album, that is. And then she came through with an album from 2022, which was a bit of a surprise release. And again, just kind of just gave us a bit of fun and was really good as yeah. Lil Sims, yeah, I'm seeing the vision, man. I think in a few years, with another few good albums, I think more and more people are gonna see it, man, and they're gonna realize how good she is. Lupe Fiasco, one of a kind, of course. MC Ride, I want to talk you through MC Ride, actually, because MC Ride is a bit of a meme now, but honestly, for what he did for pushing boundaries and doing things that nobody else would ever do, has to put him on this list for me. I mean, the music of Death Grips is already amazing to me anyway, and I get that it's not for everybody, and I get a lot of people would kind of scoff at the idea of, you know, Death Grips being considered good, but no, I have to mention him. He really is one of a kind. MF Doom, can't really deny that one, to be fair. Just going to circle back to K Tempest though, because this is one that I think needs explaining a little bit. I think in terms of just pure beautiful poetry, K Tempest gets on this list. With those first couple of albums, wow, just absolutely remarkably strong with the narrative, the concept, the way that K weaves in these characters and stories. is just ridiculously unique. Again, another UK-based hip-hop artist here that maybe won't be considered for lists like this, but I can't deny how strong K's discography is so far and how beautiful it has been and remarkably strong and clever it is as well. I've seen K live too, and K will often just kind of break out into random poetry skits just off the cuff out of nowhere, and you're just kind of taken aback by how passionate and pure they are, and it really bleeds into the music. Another artist here that might not make many other lists, but if you've never gave them a chance or check them out, please do, because I'm sure you would understand why they are worthy of a list like this. Milo or Rap Ferreira, both pseudonyms, have been really strong. Mos Def, a name that really appears way too low on a lot of these lists. I would probably say top 20 all time if I'm being honest, but you tend to don't see him that high. But yeah, The Ecstatic, one of the best rap albums I've ever heard. Nas, yeah, you can't really deny Nas. I mean, his run recently has been really good too. Again, a bit like Black Thought, where that late resurgence towards the end of their careers where you wouldn't expect them to be putting out much music anymore. They've both been kind of killing it. But the fact that you see a lot of praise for Nas but you don't see it for Black Thought annoys me a little bit, to be honest, because I think Black Thought is doing better work than Nas is right now. But even still, not to discredit anything Nas has done, Illmatic is fantastic. You know, what can you say, man? Nas is deserving of this list. Biggie, I wanted to include just because I think of his flows and his swagger and his demeanour and his personality that really comes through on his music. I've got to say that I don't really go back to his albums very often. I especially like the amount of sex skits that just pop up on his albums that really annoy me, man. It's like, there's a time and a place to be wanting to listen to this. I don't want to listen to this when I'm listening to music. Who wants this when they're listening to music? No. But anyway, I can't deny him. He would be a lot of people's like top 5. He isn't for me, if I'm being honest. Like, I don't think, again, is there enough music there to really herald him that highly? I personally don't think so, but for what he did put out in the time that he did, you know, he was very, very good. Pharoah Monch, again, similar to Elzai, where the wordplay and the ideas are just insane, particularly with the work he did for Organised Confusion. That is, yeah, insane stuff. Five Dog, come on man, don't need to explain that one. Do I need to explain Fonte? Maybe you need to explain Fonte a little bit. I mean, Fonte I think is amazing. Little Brother, underrated a little bit actually, a little bit underrated. Prince Paul, another underrated one actually. Yeah, Prince Paul, bit underrated. Prince Among Thieves, great album. Yeah, I do stop doing him a disservice. Playboy Carti, again, not really a lyrical one, but that trap side that I gravitate towards. And I think how creative he is as well. Like, he keeps reinventing himself with every album. He's not going to say anything special or anything you're going to be thinking about for the next 5 days, or like, you know, have in your mind, or be like, whoa. But how he does it, and his beat selections and his style is remarkable, that he has to be on this list for me. Pusha T, yeah, I think, you know, his work with Clips eclipses his solo work actually. A lot of people seem to forget how good Clips were, but even his solo work is ridiculously good too. But maybe that's a bit of a hot take for the day. I think his work with Clips will always be better than his solo stuff, but both are good. We're down to the last 10 now, and we're starting with Q-Tip. Do I really need to explain that? Not really. His solo stuff actually is really good though. Raekwon, probably don't need to explain that one either. Tom Scott, I'm going to go back to though and explain. Maybe a bit lucky to get on here. He's the exception to the rule of the fact that he hasn't got a lot of music out, but the music he has put out is really, really bloody good. And the understanding of, you know, coming from a poor background and the poverty and his passion and the beauty behind his words is always so strong that I think he deserves to be here. His work with Avondale Bowling Club is just so special. And yeah, again, not much material to go on, but he's the exception to the rule for me. Richie with a T, just one of the funniest rappers on this whole list. One of my favourite rappers, just for pure comedy, and a lot more value to that as well. He gets deep, he gets emotional like Grogs. But yeah, Injury Reserve are too impactful to me personally that I couldn't not have him on this list. Travis Scott, not lyrical as I've talked about a few others, and maybe is upheld at times, upheld by others around him at times. But Rodeo, man, Astro World even still, and you know, Utopia. They were all really strong, so I can't not include him on this list. He's got some of my favourite hip-hop based songs of all time. He had to be on here. Tyler, maybe if you'd said this 10 years ago, including Tyler on a list like this might have been a bit silly. But nowadays, it's like he's the first name on the team sheet, as they say, because he's just really good. And even back then, he had Wolf, which is pretty underrated at this point, to be honest with you. I absolutely love Wolf. But the point being that, you know, at that time, he only really had Goblin, Bastard, Odd Future stuff, and Wolf. Was that enough to include him on lists like that? Probably not, but now with Flower Boy, Call Me If You Get Lost, the deluxe tracks from that, and even Igor, where he branched out and did something totally different and really unique, just easily puts him on this list for me, man. Yeah, absolutely love what Tyler does. Vince, yeah, I think Vince has proven himself at this point. I think it's his self-titled album that did it for me, though. Like, that's what cemented him on this list, because that's the one I love the most. But I do love how he was willing to take risks and branched out on an album like Big Fish Theory, to the point where his core fan base probably bullied him out of doing it again because they just didn't take to it at all. But I think a lot of people who appreciate a bit of experimentation, a bit of uniqueness, a bit of oddness to their music really took to that album. And yeah, the fact that he was willing to do it always wows me, to be honest with you. But yeah, a lot of his other work too, his album from 2021 or 2022. Yeah, 2022, because 2021 was self-titled. That was pretty good as well. So yeah, definitely enough material at this point to cement him on here for me. I think Wiki's pretty underrated, you know. Really unique voice. A New York rapper that just has such a rasp and a twang that really stands out immediately when you hear him. His work with Rat King was great as well, you know. Yeah, I really like Wiki. And then Young Nudie and Young Thug. I mean, Young Nudie at this point, similar to Future Waves, just put out that much music, but the ratio is strong. So much good stuff from Young Nudie. Again, not particularly lyrical, but it ain't just always about that for me. And then Young Thug, I mean, talking about influence, man, this guy has bags of it. One of the most influential artists of the 2010s, of course. But even that aside, his work, you know, Jeffrey, friggin' Bar 6, Beautiful Thugger Girls, I think is pretty underrated too. Yeah, a lot of his work I really like. I was disappointed by his most recent album, but even with that in mind, all of his previous stuff has just been that strong that he makes the list for me. And that's my 50 rappers in no particular order that I view as my favourites of all time. In 5 years' time, this list will change. I've already said at the start, there's a lot of upcoming rappers that are really, really potentially going to make a list like this for me at some point if they continue the rate they're on. And there's a lot of classic rappers that, again, that aren't quite there for me personally. I'm just not a big fan of them, or for whatever reason that they just don't make this list. So hopefully you've appreciated what I've brought to the table here. Take it for what you will. If you totally disregard my opinion after this, that's probably stupid. I'm not going to lie, but I can't control what you do at the end of the day. And yeah, hopefully you've got some new recommendations, a fresh take on a list like this. I do think this list is very different to your average one, so I do feel quite happy with that and sharing it with you. And yeah, I do mean all of this as well. This isn't just trying to be different for the sake of it. This is my 50 favourite rappers of all time list for all the reasons that I've given. And yeah, thank you for watching. Share what yours would be in the comments. Share the video around too. Have a good day and goodbye.